welcome to the stage, artist extraordinaire, Sabrina Nelson.
Thank you, everyone. So I was invited several times to go on a study abroad trip with students from the College of Art, like almost 10 years in a row, and I could never get it together. Eventually, the person who invited me decided to submit my name to an artist residency in Zimbabwe. I'd done a few workshops with these particular artists over Zoom and also FaceTime, and during COVID, beyond that, after that, but I'd never been to the continent. Well, he submitted my name, and they actually selected me to go to this artist residency, which was 3.5 weeks. Now, I have never been to the continent of Africa, and I've been asked all the time, have you ever been to Africa? And I'm like, no, not yet. But that was always my answer. So I knew it was coming. I didn't really believe I was going to Zimbabwe until I saw the tickets. For me, I can't believe something until I actually see it. And so once I saw the ticket was purchased, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to the continent of Africa. I'm going to Africa for 3.5 weeks. I'm gonna teach an artist residency. I'm gonna be there. So I started doing research. I started having Zoom meetings. And then, of course, I realized my passport expired. I had to get a new passport, and I had to have it expedited. I got all the paperwork I needed. I was going to Zimbabwe. I even did the sit-in meetings to understand that Zimbabwe, Harare, actually meant House of Stone. So I was going to teach a group of artists how to do printmaking. So I was gathering my things together, I was packing my things together and tried to figure out what I would need. Now, if you know me, I'm always dressing with bells and whistles. I decided not to do that in Zimbabwe. Like, you're not gonna flex in Zimbabwe from Detroit. So I toned it way down. I didn't take any jewelry, I didn't take any makeup, I just packed my bags. I borrowed a bag from my mother. My mother's almost 80 years old. This bag I borrowed, I wanted to make sure it was ugly enough that no one wanted it. So it was zebra print, and it was fake zebra print, and it was pretty big. It was about this high, big enough to put 3.5 weeks worth of working clothes in and art supplies. So I packed that bag, I checked that bag, and I took a bag on board with me and a backpack. The things I carried on board were just in case. Well, I flew from Detroit to JFK. Now, if anybody travels in the world, you know you have to go from a major airport to get there. So from JFK, I was gonna fly to Kenya, Nairobi to be exact. That was gonna be 14.5 hours of flight. So sitting in the New York airport, just waiting for my flight to board, I'm sitting there, and then I notice, now I love to people watch. I love to feed my eyes with what people are wearing, what they're doing, making up stories about them. I see this group of women walking towards our gate. Now, our gate, we are leaving from New York to Kenya. And it's about 8 or 9 of them. They have on these dark burgundy, blue-red suits, and they are gorgeous. They look like they're walking to music. They're dark, dark, dark-skinned women. I'm assuming they're Kenya Airways women. They're Kenyan, and they have their hair braided in these beautiful coifs with this beaded hairpiece that lays across their forehead. Now, in my mind, I'm like, damn, they fine. And I see them walking towards me, and I'm like, I ain't never seen no group of women on a flight this fine. I've traveled for 30 years for my college, and I ain't never seen this. Now, I'm holding that in my head, and behind them are the pilots. Now, the pilots were super fine. And I'm looking at him, and I'm holding myself together, but out of my mouth comes, "Sweet black baby Jesus. Thank you for blessing me." And I say it out loud, and I thought it was in my head. And I think the people around me heard me. Anyways, I meant every word of it. We get on the flight, and we fly 14 and a half hours to get to Kenya. And then I have a little bit of a layover before we fly from Kenya to Harare. Now, I think that's about 4 hours. Now, I'm on the flight. I get off the flight. I look out the window. I press my face up against the plexiglass in Kenya, and I'm like, I want to go out there, but it's not safe. I probably got about 4 or 5 hours. I would be the one who'd be arrested, and no one would come and get me. So I stay inside. I follow the rules. I get on the flight. We get to Harare. It's probably 6 or 7 hours different than Detroit. I land after midnight. I get there, I'm a little tired. I'm just been traveling for over 20 hours. Now I get inside the airport, we have to go through customs, then we go to baggage claim. Get to baggage claim, the ugly bag is not there. I text Edmare, who is outside waiting on me. He sends me a picture, "Hey, I'm waiting for you, just come outside." I get outside, and he says to me, "It'll be okay. Your bag will come. We'll come back." And I'm like, okay, I can't see anything. It's 1 a.m. at this point. And then all of a sudden, I hear, as I'm walking to his car, "What up, doe?" Now, it's dark. And Admire is like black African. I can't see Admire. I see his hat. I can't see the car. I get towards the car, and then I get in the car, and I notice Ron. Ron is from Detroit. I know Ron's mother. I forgot Ron was there. I felt like home was there. I felt like I had arrived at home. We drive this weird terrain. About 45 minutes out of the airport is the town that we're in, outside of the city of Harare. Now, one thing I'm never, ever going to do after visiting Zimbabwe is ever talk about the roads in Detroit ever again. They have manholes. They don't have potholes. Like, if your car goes, it's gone. You gone. Ain't no muffler, no, the whole car is gone. Anyways, I get to the compound about 45 minutes later. They open the gate. You hear the dogs barking. Now, the gate is a wall, and there's barbed wire over the wall. That is to protect the family who lives there, to keep the baboons, the monkeys, and even people out. Right? So I get inside. I'm given a very quick tour. I can't see anything except for the stars, which look super bright to me, because these can't be the same stars I see in Detroit, because these are Zimbabwean stars. And so I'm looking at planets. Either way, they give me a tour, they hand me a bucket, and they show me the hut that I'm staying in. The hut is made out of cement on a platform with a grass thatch roof, right? And so I'm taken to the bathroom, which is made out of recycled beer and pop bottles and just cement. There is no ceiling. There is no roof. I'm looking at the stars. So I will use the bathroom in this space with my bucket to flush the waste down and the bucket to heat up the water. Every day I have to have this bucket. There is no flush and plumbing like my privilege and your privilege self has. There is the bucket. And so that bucket will be used to heat up water and to enter the space with the waste. So I go to my hut. I'm in there with the mosquito net over the bed, and it's their winter, so not many bugs. I see the blankets that they bought because it's their winter. It's like 50. They're freezing. I'm like, this is good sleeping weather. I go to bed, but before I go to sleep, I hear roosters and pigs and dogs, and I'm like, it's so freaking loud here. I can't take it. So I put my earplugs in, my headphone. I go to sleep. I wake up. I come outside of my hut, and I realize I'm in Zimbabwe. I step outside to meet the family. I meet Taz, the wife, the mother of the children, admire the husband. They're both artists and people who are working on the Animal Farm Art Residency. They give me the tour. They tell me everything about what I need to know. They're going to heat up the water every day for me to take a bath, which is really a shower. And they use wood that they have to buy to heat up this water and cook this food. Now, I eat my first meal, and I explain to them that I'm vegan. And they're like, eh. Now, they speak a language that I understand linguistics, how the body moves and the tone, and I was like, okay, they don't get it, but I'm going to figure it out. So my first meal is an avo salad. Now, the avos are everywhere because everybody's got avocado trees, and they eat out of the garden, too, because they plant their food, which makes sense. And so as a guest, because I had a praying grandmother, and she taught me how to be a good guest, I ate the avo salad. Now, in the avo salad, they use mayonnaise. Vegans don't eat mayonnaise because it's got eggs in it. And if we eat it, it causes what happened to me while I was there, called a situation. But because I'm a good guest, I ate it. And then I had to use the bucket a lot that evening. And it's okay. Admire took me to many art shows. He took me to the National Art Gallery of Zimbabwe. He took me to private studios. I helped with the children. I made sure that I cleaned up after myself and everybody else. And also, when I taught the artist workshop, I wouldn't allow them to spend money on supplies. Now, we got things donated to us, and we figured it out. So as a guest, I saw that the family lived in the residency, Admire and his wife and their children, Kekio and Kiera, 2 and 4 years old. So when they buy wood to heat up water for me to take a bath, that's money coming out of their pockets. So sometimes I just took a cold shower because you're not going to buy wood for me. And so there was also an opportunity for me to go to get my hair braided. I asked Admire, I said, you know, I really, really want to get my hair braided while I'm here on the continent. And he says, well, we'll just work it out. One day he had to go and get the car checked out in the city, and he says, why don't you go with me? And I said, absolutely. Before we went, we would go to markets, open markets, and I noticed how people would stare at me now. I didn't have on all these bells and whistles. I just had on jumpsuits and work clothes, and I kept a hat on or a scarf. And I felt a little weird, and I said to him, do you notice how people are staring at me? And he was like, well, you know when you're not from here. And I said, nah, I think it's a little something else. I also hadn't seen anybody who looked like me who was there. Now, I'm from one of the blackest cities, and I can't see myself, but in Detroit, I feel like I'm from one of the blackest cities here, and I'm a black citizen. I don't identify as anything else. Either way, he says to me, I'm going to go get my car fixed. I'm going to drop you off to get your hair done. Okay. I was like, you don't need no appointment or nothing like that, so. He drops me off in this wooden shed. It's just made out of pressed wood, and it's got a wooden top over it, and it's about 8 women in there, and they're all doing hair, and they're speaking in Shona. And when I get in, they're having their own language, and she asked me, she said, what kind of braids do you want? And I say, box braids. Now, I bought hair with me from Detroit, but I didn't know I was getting my hair done that day, so it's still in the ugly bag that came back 2 days after I got there. Either way. So then she says, what color hair? And I said, brown. So she starts braiding my hair. 4.5 hours later, there's about 8 cell phone lights over my head. This spot does not have water, no electricity. They are getting my hair done, and I got cell phones over my head like I'm sitting on stage right now. But before she starts braiding, she takes the comb and she tries to rake it through my head, like easily. Now, let me tell you the word for oh, hell no, or shit in Shona is this. They do this. She's. She took that comb, and I guess she thought I was a white lady. She took the comb and a soft brush out, and it stopped. And my African ancestors pulled back with great resistance. And when she said, "Sheesh," the other ladies came over and looked. And I laughed because I was like, yep, I'm black. I know you didn't think so, but I'm black. But after she braided my hair and we laughed and, I felt comfortable and I think they felt comfortable. My hair was done. I took selfies and Admire picked me up. And then I felt, kind of good about it because my hair showed them. Either way. I ended up walking the kids to school the next day, and the teacher in the school, I walked with Taz, the white wife. She's born in Zimbabwe, but she is white. She's tall, very model-esque, and her skin is very pale. And so we walked the kids to school in the morning, and one of the teachers says to me, "So, are you her sister?" And me and Taz looked around like, who's she talking about? But we both looked at each other and we said no. And I guess easily we could have said yes, but we decided, no, we're not related. But the kids called me Auntie Sabrina and Go-Go, which is grandmother in Zimbabwe, or respect for an adult woman. They say auntie. And so I felt very much like family. I also offered one night to cook a meal. I cooked a vegan curry lentil coconut soup, and Admire ate it, and everybody else ate it, and they said, this vegan thing ain't so bad after all, because I know they didn't like the idea of it, but they ate it, and then they loved it. So again, learning how to be a guest and learning how to make something work for the whole collective. Well, I finished the workshop. I learned some great things. My butter was stolen from Victoria Falls from a monkey. I've experienced some baboons walking in the town and being othered and also knowing what it is to have privilege. When I got back home, I immediately went to Source Bookstore, and anybody here who knows Miss Janet and Allison, they were very excited because I was posting pictures about my trip, which are still on my Instagram, and Miss Janet says, "What did you bring back besides trinkets?" And I paused, which I never do. I paused, and I almost cried because I never even thought of that. And my answer was humility, how to be a guest, the respect for fresh water, what it is to accept what someone is giving you as the gift of their humility, right? And also what it is to move in the world as a creative, what it is to choose family. Now they're my chosen family, even though they're not my blood family. And also how it is to be a citizen in the world and know that food is important and water is important all over the planet. And we here have an abundance of things, and we waste a lot. So that was my answer to Miss Janet. And now that I travel more, I've traveled since May to other countries, other continents, and I see how privilege looks from the outside, too. And so that's my Trippin story, but I learned a lot. Thank you.
Sabrina Nelson.